It's going to be a brief run through of some slides that we've pulled together, with my big thanks to Joe, telling you a little bit about Cato and how the NIHR bid is put together, which is what we're aiming to do in the next 4 months or so. So welcome everybody. My name's Frances Williams, and I'm the director of Cato and a co-lead of the NIHR IAT scheme. Next slide, please, Joe. So just to give you a little bit of background to Cato, this King's Clinical Academic Training Office was founded in April 22, and our mission is to facilitate and support world-class pan-professional clinical academic training across King's College and the NHS partner trusts. And a main thrust of this is to enable all health professional disciplines to become clinical academic leaders of the future. Next slide, please, Joe. Thank you. So we are a very much expanded team since April 2022, and the key people involved in the presentation today here are Rena and me, Joe Murphy, who's very kindly put these slides together, and Amy Moore as the strategy director. Next slide, please. So what is the NIHR Integrated Academic, or IAT scheme? So the programme supports the training of doctors and dentists in England to develop clinical academic careers, and it was launched in 2005. It allocates academic clinical fellowships, or ACFs, and clinical lecturerships, CLs, to partnership organisations comprising medical schools or and higher education institutes and dental schools alongside their clinical partners. And the aim is to fit specialty training period together with an academic training. At King's, this programme has been running for over 17 years now and has trained over 350 clinical academics. And last round, which we submitted in 2023, we were awarded 29 ACFs and 17 CLs, which was highly competitive across England. We operate the programme from King's and 3 Foundation Trust partners: Guy's and St Thomas's, King's College Hospital, and South London and Maudsley. Next slide, please, Joe. So just to give you a brief overview of the medicine pathway as opposed to the dentistry, which is on the next slide. For those of you that aren't familiar with medical training, going from left to right here, you can see that in medical school, people have various different routes to obtaining a basic degree in medicine and surgery, and they may or may not include an intercalated BSc or even a PhD, which isn't currently offered at King's. They then undertake foundation programme training, which is on the wards pre-registration, and allows people with this medical degree to start their academic work. Sorry, I've just realised I should have requested that people turn off cameras and mute their microphones. They then progress on to specialist training. This is to become a specialist physician or surgeon through the ST specialist training levels, which are of variable length according to the different subspecialties. So obviously the craft specialties requiring high degrees of skill and techniques, which take longer than more broader-based physician-style training. This can include an academic clinical fellowship or a clinical lectureship as a route to clinical training, but of course most people do not undertake this. They just undertake the orange clinical training level strip across the middle, and then you move on to senior positions, which are consultant level and may include any number of academic levels therein. More information is available at the IAT guide on NIHR, and I should say there is a very great deal of information available online should you wish to look at this further. Next slide, please. So this is the dental training pathway, which, as you can see, is very similar in many respects, but the ACF starts somewhat earlier among the core dental training years, and is led really by Martin Coburn's team within the dental school. We offer some support, but it tends to stand separate from us. Next slide, please.
Hello, so my name is Rena Dutter. I'm a Deputy Director of Cato and I co-lead the IAT scheme with Francis Williams. I'm going to take you through what the differences are between an Academic Clinical Fellow or ACF and a Clinical Lecturer or CL, and I'm going to use those acronyms now, ACF being more junior, CL being more senior. So the ACFs are a trainee in their early stage of specialty training. They've outstanding potential, but usually they are pre-doctoral, and that would be the aim. But you can be appointed having got a PhD or MD Res. Usually the aim of this period is to obtain a clinical research training fellowship, but it could be to obtain other funding to sustain an academic career. So the ACFs hold their substantive NHS contract and then hold an honorary KCL contract. The post is a maximum of 3 years, and usually the division is as a 3-month research block and a 6-month research block. So 75% of time is spent in their specialty clinical training, with a quarter of the time spent in research. But these arrangements are agreed at a local level, and for some specialties, notably I think radiology, there is a day release type system which has been found to work better. They can be appointed at any level, and it includes run-through training once appointment has happened. Next slide, please. So the CLs are a little bit more advanced. They're in their specialty training. Again, they have that outstanding potential. They are postdoctoral. That is the thing that defines them. Their next aim is to obtain a clinical scientist fellowship or a clinical senior lectureship. And conversely, compared to these ACFs, they hold a substantive KCL contract with an honorary NHS post. The lectureships can last a maximum of 4 years, with 50% of time carrying out research combined with clinical training, which is organised to suit the trainees' needs. They need to continue to hold an NTN, which has been benchmarked through the appropriate nationally agreed process. And at the end of the lectureship, the CLs will have completed their specialty training and got their CCT. Next slide, please. So it's really important to bear in mind that although these are clinical research trainees that have chosen to go into clinical academia, they still need to conform to the regulations of the Gold Guide. So it's worth bearing in mind as a potential supervisor that you must point your ACF or CL in the direction of the Medical Gold Guide or the Dental Gold Guide. They need to have the appropriate competencies clinically, which are laid out there. We would also encourage you to link your ACF or CL to the Cato office, because we provide access to high quality mentorship, leadership and support to help pursue next career steps. And we have an induction and welcome event which is held in October each year for the ACFs, and CLs also join that too. In terms of funding, bursary funding is available for attending meetings, courses and conferences, and there is also a research support fund for consumables and PPIE. We provide the information on that to all the trainees during induction, but it's also available on the website and worth checking before booking onto any such courses. Next slide, please, Jo. So what does supervising a trainee comprise? Because the aim of this webinar was to see, were there any other people that have not supervised before who would be interested in supervising ACFs and CLs? Well, it's about supporting a clinical academic with their project selection in the case of a clinical fellow. And for clinical lecturers who are already postdoctoral, it's about linking them in with the wider senior academic research community. Obviously, there are regular meetings that need to be undertaken to address concerns, but also to discuss progress and help and support along the way. And these are for both academic and clinical training needs. The opportunities need to be provided for the more senior CLs to build their research track record and outputs, because they're aiming to go for a more senior fellowship or more substantive research funding. With the ACFs, just embedding them within a wider supervisory team is important. All should be able to have access to the within department academic programs such as journal clubs and seminar series. Another duty of the supervisor is to complete the research training report and provide the annual academic report for the ARCP, and also to provide the necessary support to complete the pre-doctoral application, or in the case of CLs, to look to do an external funding application. So the measure of success is for the ACF to obtain a clinical research training fellowship, a doctoral fellowship, maybe from the MRC or NIHR, for example, but it could also be from the British Heart Foundation, Cancer Research UK, any number of other funders. And for the CLs, it's to obtain an external senior research fellow award or a fellowship. Next slide, please, Jo. So what do we run in the way of training? We have a mandatory training for ACFs, which is a PG Cert in Applied Research Methods, led by Professor James Galway, and his deputy lead is Dr. Andrew Webb. It provides excellent generic research skills to support research training, and the course days run throughout autumn and spring every 2 weeks. There are 4 modules, which you can read through there. All these slides, by the way, are going to be provided as a PDF available on our SharePoint. So you'll be able to look at more details then, should you wish to. An induction for this is also held at the end of October, when trainees come to join us. And do contact us if you have any further queries about this particular course. Sometimes clinical lecturers choose to do certain aspects of it. Next slide, please, Jo. These are the academic specialty leads who take care of the academic trainees in the different specialties you can see listed on the left. Next slide, please. And again, here on the left, as I say, you will have access to all these slides as a PDF. So I'll now hand back to Francis.
Thanks, Rena. So I'm just going to say a little bit about the NIHR IAC competition that we're beginning to prepare for, with a submission date expected in May. And at the outset, I want to stress that one of the reasons for having this webinar was to try and encourage people to move away from this single PI, single project approach to a more departmental-wide approach, whereby folk who haven't been involved in the NIHR awards to date can begin to become a part of it. Now, this has always been challenging because part of the assessment is around track record. And so it's only by gathering people into departments and developing a narrative around the track record of the department can new PIs really begin to become supervisors. So the competition is expected to launch any day now. We were advised it would be January this year. And we're expecting a very similar bid to last time, in that there is a 2-year allocation of posts. So these trainee posts will start in 2026 and 27. They are awarded through a competitive bidding process, and they are subdivided into strategic themes. And more on that in a moment. They usually encourage, very encouraging of new medical schools to apply, and clearly we don't fit in that group, so collaborations with new medical schools is encouraged. And in the past, the last round, we had NIHR theme posts. Half of the posts were under the themes that they had nominated, and then King's has 50% also put in under response mode. These themes reflect the strategic aims of King's and King's Health Partners. So we are putting together a bid, therefore, with a number of posts under each theme, and we're looking to be able to describe a range of projects. So this is where we will ask for your help in identifying example projects that we can include in a broad description of the bid that we put in. So it's not a question of taking the projects that you propose and then writing that directly into the bid. What we do is we write an overarching document that encompasses some of the flavour of the overall applications that we receive. It's important to note that not only is the competition that we lead available for posts, but there is also a route by which you can apply for locally funded posts if you have research funds available within your department. These are badged as NIHR posts and form a separate application process, but they have the benefit of bringing the trainees into the NIHR Academy. And there's more information on our Cato website if that is something you would like to consider. Next slide, please, Joe. So we wanted to just indicate roughly what the bid that we will put together looks like. And these are the expressions of interest forms that we will ask for your help completing so that we can get a flavour of the projects that you might be able to submit. And the information is not extensive that we require, but it is always on a short timeline, which is driven by NIHR. And so there will be roughly boxes containing these sorts of requests. So a small text on the proposed research project, on grant funding that exists around this project, links with NIHR infrastructure, the local support that a trainee would receive within the department, track record of any existing or previous ACFs and CLs, and examples of activities that promote or enhance inclusive and supportive research culture. So as you can see here, if you're a new person into this, it's very difficult to demonstrate track record. In fact, it's impossible. And this is why we're encouraging people to join with their department to be able to provide track record, because this is really a sort of departmental approach rather than an individual PI project approach. Next slide, please. I think this is still me, Rena, but shout if I'm wrong. So just to give you a flavour of the themes, this is what was put together for our last bid. So we had NIHR priority research themes in those different areas, and we will obviously bring to you the themes from NIHR when NIHR formally launch their scheme and confirm their priorities. But we're expecting similar to this. There's often a little variation, but not a massive variation in their themes. Over to you, Rena.
Thank you. So I'm just going to go over a broad timeline, taking us right through from now till autumn of 2026, which is when the first ACFs and CLs will be appointed and will actually take up their posts. So at the moment, we're very much in the pre-preparatory phase, really. The bid call hasn't been announced yet by NIHR. They always leave us a little uncertain of the exact date, but we hope sometime in January, possibly early February, it will be released. And at that point, we will be wanting, at this stage, we want you to be really thinking and trying to organise yourselves departmentally to collate things like a track record of your research training environment, think about awards made previously to ACFs, evidence of CLs acquiring grant funding. Even longer term progression is also of benefit, and we could potentially summarise some of that into the application as well. So it's very much a collation and preparing phase. As soon as the call is announced, we're in a good position to issue our expression of interest form, because as was circulated with the information for this meeting, we're expecting it to be very similar to last time. And Fran has shown you the various sections on that. So they're relatively short sections. You can begin your planning because we do expect that the deadline from that will not be particularly it will be a short deadline. It will be around the half-term period once more. So we need to plan in advance for that. and try to coordinate your expressions of interest very much within your department, and coordinate them with your academic lead, who can often help with the articulation of the environment that the ACF or CL would be welcome to. Now, then after that, we actually are involved in application writing, and various review boards happen internally within King's Health Partners to decide how the bid is actually finalised. It's reviewed, first of all, by NHS England around April, and then finally, after they have agreed the actual GMC specialties and under which themes we will be submitting, it's submitted to NIHR in May. And the outcomes come out reasonably quickly, actually, by July of 2025. So that means the academic leads are in a position to begin thinking of the time windows they will be wanting to recruit to. The ACF recruitment is all via national competition, as are the CL recruitments. All must go out to national competition. All recruitment must be done by NHS England. It's really important to stick to that, because there can be or have been instances where that has not been properly followed. So please do bear that in mind. And as I say, the first ACFs and CLs will be starting in autumn 2026. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to show you here what we as a team have to put together. These are the key areas that we will be answering to in the form: the description and management of our KCL IAP programme. Then we go into the response modes and NIHR research theme and the bids that we're putting in for these. But as Francis has already mentioned, these have to be very much a distillation of the various individual projects that you've put in, and a collation of different themes from that, which we put together into this section of the proposal. And we need to also talk about progression of ACFs and CLs in the partnership. This is just to give you an idea of how we synthesize the information that you give in your more detailed format, and that we then put into the application for this particular bid. Next slide, please. And that's all from both of us. And we now anticipate your questions. We've left plenty of time for those. We've got at least 20 minutes left. So do feel free to put those in the chat, or indeed, it would be great if more people can now open up your cameras, come on the microphone and voice your own questions too. Thank you.
Anna, hi.
Hi, thanks for clarifying the scheme. So I first applied 2 years ago and found that it wasn't that clear how we were informed. So it's nice to hear that this time you'll be informed in July 2025. Is that for 2027 as well, or is that just for 2026?
Just for 26. We do it 1 year at a time. So I think what's really important to stress here is that we have quite a job to do in balancing all the different aspects of what is effectively hybrid training. So we have to liaise, if you like, between NHS England, who is concerned with training numbers and specialty training numbers and making sure that they have doctors trained in any particular field, with the NIHR, which is trying to produce clinical academics of the future, trying to generate people who are able to lead in a clinical academic setting, but also generate funding for universities and trusts. And so there's quite a lot of sort of jigsawing that we have to do to satisfy both the requirements of those two bodies, but also reflect the priorities of King's, because clearly we have strengths here, and the converse, we have weaknesses, relatively weaker areas that we are not going to be very competitive in. So part of our remit is to put together a bid that is as strong as it possibly can be, and that means by necessity looking really to promote going for the NIHR themes that we consider King's to be strong in, stepping away from areas where we know we have very intense competition, whilst also trying to fulfil the sort of priority areas of King's Health Partners.
So just to clarify, so for July 25, you hear about August 26, and then presumably by July 26, you'll hear about August 27. Is that approximately? Or,
yes, yes,
or sooner.
Roughly speaking. I mean, we
Fabulous.
get an indication at the outset. We get an indication across both years, but we don't have specific allocations to really nail down until nearer that time.
That makes sense. Thanks for that.
Christoph?
Yes, hello. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not sure if you can really answer that question. A query we often get for ACL candidates, for old age psychiatry posts, is around kind of the length of the training and if they can do a dual CCT, isn't it? So if they actually in the 4 years could train in old age psychiatry and general adult psychiatry, which would be like a 4-year training program compared to just only doing an old age psychiatry training program or a general adult psychiatry training program. But I think the answer from kind of the School of Psychiatry has always been no, that this isn't possible. Is there kind of any movement in that area? Because I guess we might be losing some candidates who are kind of really keen on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, my knowledge has come down to a candidate who was wanting to do similar with general psychiatry and psychotherapy, and it was not allowed. So I think generally because of that time stipulation, it is single training only.
I guess general psychiatry and psychotherapy would be 5 years, though, isn't it? And old age psychiatry and general adult psychiatry would be 4 years. So it could technically fit within that, but I'm not sure if there are other barriers.
It sounds like you've had prior discussion with Vivian Curtis. So let's take this offline and deal with this as a specific query, if that's okay, Christoph.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not terribly kind of urgent anyway.
Okay. Thank you. But we'll have, because we have got other questions coming in, I think. Is that right? That there were some other people putting their hands up?
Can't see any other hands at the moment, Rena.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Thomas here. Thank you.
Yeah. It's kind of similar to Anna's question, really, that I put something together for a CL a couple of years ago. I know it was scored very, very highly. That's the feedback I got. I know it was approved. I know it went to interview. I know there are people good enough, but I never ended up with a CL. And I found the whole process very, very opaque and can't really understand much about the whole process, to be honest with you. And like with Anna, I didn't get much feedback during the period of time throughout the whole process. I didn't know when to tell people to start, getting keen on King's College London, King's Health Partners, and start looking and trying to find things on the website. I had to be very, very proactive and ask lots of questions because it was my first time for me. So, I know there's a lot of interest and all the rest of it, and I know we scored, and I know there was a position, but I don't really know what happened.
So I think that there are a couple of things to say to that. It is very difficult to try and give a flavour of how this works, and that's why we've set this webinar up, and we are endeavouring to put more and more information on the Cato website so that it is clearer. But of course, these are highly competitive national level posts. So ultimately, even if your project scores very highly within King's, and even if we are allocated a post that fits your specialty at the year that you may have somebody, it is still an open competition post. So we can't ever say, you've got an excellent candidate, we can ensure that they get a post. It's worth bearing in mind also that we receive a large number of expressions of interest, as I say, we work into this bid. And the posts that we obtained back in the last bid, I gave the numbers, I can't remember them off the top of my head. But for CLs, for example, by the time you've split the CLs in half by the year, 2 years, and then you split them again because we have roughly half in psychiatry and half in medicine, you're only ending up with 4 CL posts for the whole of King's in Fulham for any 1 year. So there are always going to be people who are disappointed, even with highly ranked projects. Doesn't look from your face that I've answered your question.
I don't know. I mean, I found the whole thing bewildering, if I'm honest about the whole process. I mean, I know, so I'm a radiologist. I know there was we had people. I know they ranked high enough. I know they wanted to do the job and things like this. So I just didn't really understand. I don't know the stats.
It's just like any other grant. It's like any other grant application. If you put a grant into the MRC, you know that the funding rate can be 9%. So you may be very highly scored as a project. You may be offering all that the MRC wants to see, but it's ultimately a numbers game. And the numbers are stacked against you. Now, that's really difficult when you're dealing with an individual trainee and you want to encourage them. I absolutely appreciate that. And we work really hard to try and understand, particularly at the CL level, who's coming through and who we can accommodate. But ultimately, as I've said, if we end up with, and we were the second most highly awarded institution in the country after Oxford, but that only translated to 4 CL posts in Folsom in this year currently. So that's 4 specialties. So it's a numbers game that we endeavour to play as fairly as we possibly can.
And do we know roughly what the rates are in terms of number of posts to I don't know, from our group, how many
you asked how many applicants there were for a post.
I guess just
about the partnership as well, and if we have one, are they expected to work site or at King's or?
Sorry, I can hear someone speaking, but I can't.
My renal knowledge.
Okay, Fran, I think there was someone wasn't on mute. I think that was the issue there for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's fine.
Contribution to the discussion.
Yeah, if Thomas, did you want to add anything else to the question, or are you happy with that? Maybe potentially get in touch with Fran and Rena and myself after the webinar might be useful for you.
Okay. Thanks.
I think it was Anna next.
Yeah, it was just a feedback to Thomas that one thing that I've noticed is you can be successful, you can get appointed, they go to the local. So in infection, we got someone for our trust, but then that person once appointed can do a project wherever they like. So it's all very non-specific, like the whole process is very non-specific, and that's what in part can make it quite frustrating, because you can have someone who's apparently coming to you and then in the end they can go somewhere else. So there may be other factors that you are less aware of in that whole application process. When they go to interview, they meet other groups and they discuss other projects as they're doing that. So yeah, there's different aspects. There's whether we're successful and also whether in the end the candidate, and we've had a lot of candidates apply for ours, get our post, so they can get a post with you and then they can go and work somewhere else. So that also can happen.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Shelley.
Thank you. Hi, I'm a respiratory consultant at Lane Fox at the premises. I wanted to just ask if there were projects, for example, we're linking with Brompton Respiratory because we are very much encouraged to do more cross-site working, and I think we've got a good skill set of course at both campuses, as it were. Is that something that we can do for a KCL application? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So long as it's clear which bit's done, you know, by which group, that's absolutely fine.
Okay, and I presume the leads would be still a GSPT appointed consultants, or does that not matter? I mean, it would be, that's why I'm asking, but
yes,
that's fine. But it would, but if they were going across to Brompton, we had a joint project, that would be fine.
Yes, indeed.
Okay,
yes.
great.
To be encouraged. Yeah.
Okay, great. Because I'm just thinking that might add a bit of variety to some of the.
Yes, I mean, the same applies. It's important to show that there's a track record. And again, you probably want to liaise across the two respiratory departments to generate the best possible looking track record and demonstrate the infrastructure that's available to support the trainee and their training.
Yeah, of course. Great, thank you.
Could I just ask that everybody not speaking to the group is on mute, please? Thank you very much. I can see some questions in the chat. One from Georgios Krokos about bids at CL level open to clinical scientists. So only if that clinical scientist is GMC or dental council registered is the answer to that. You have to have a general medical or dental qualification to and be interested in training both clinically and academically. Thank you, Amy, you've already answered that. Any other questions? Shelley, is that a legacy hand or a new question?
Apologies.
There's Fowd as well who's raised his hand here.
Hi, Fowd. I think we've emailed before.
Yeah, we have. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for that. It's clarified quite a lot of the point that I had anyway, questions that I had. One question that is maybe just specific to us in liver is that we have a new department of sort of liver studies. So within that sits both surgeons such as myself, but also obviously the physicians and hepatologists. So I guess my question is, when the bid goes out for this time round as a department, are we talking sort of NHS sort of classical clinical departments, or are we talking KCL department, academic departments?
So I was trying to use the term very collectively. Not it doesn't have to be specifically one or the other, but simply because you're new, you're a prime example of what we're trying to encourage, which is that you work with the existing academic surgeons which happen to sit for us in vascular, in order to demonstrate, in part, you'll obviously bring your own track record, but vascular surgery here, and you've already been introduced to Bijan, I know, have the track record for NIHR purposes. And so it would be important to build on that as part of your application expression of interest.
So just to clarify, because I'd be sort of going for a ACF or ACL within surgery, I would be badged with Bijan and the vascular general surgery as opposed to the liver and the hepatologist. Is that a correct understanding?
Yes, I think at present we wouldn't be looking to change the structure of surgery. So Bijan and the vascular surgeons, they lead all surgery. Urology and general surgery has also been included under that. That's not to say it won't change in the future, but I think for this bid, we would probably stick with the current format.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I think we're coming up to 45, but we've got time for one or two more if anybody has anything they want to ask. If not, I'd just like to thank the team for putting this together and to urge you to look regularly at the Cato website. We keep trying to improve it and update it so that it remains relevant. If you see things that you think would be useful for the whole clinical academic training group to see that's not there, please do drop us a line at the IAT inbox, and we would be happy to add the links to our website. We are trying to keep it current and useful, so partly so that we don't bombard your inboxes, because we're all receiving far too many emails. So I'll just, with that, thank my co-host, Rena Dutta, and look forward to seeing your EOIs in due course. And of course, we will be running more schemes, more webinars and information sessions as the bid goes along. Great.
Thank you so much, Francis, and all the team, including Joe and Amy.
Thank you. I think we should